10 things that men fall deeply in love with in a woman. In this training, we're going to be going deeper into what are the principles and the techniques you can use to make a man fall deeply in love with you, head over heels to where he can't stop even thinking about you, to avoid a man losing interest, pulling away, or just not feeling love and seeing your relationship more as friends with benefits or something casual or something he doesn't want. I'm Brody Boyd with Magnetize Your Man, and together with my wife Antia, we've been helping millions of women all over the world to get a loving, long-term, and committed relationship for over 20 years combined. So without further ado, let's dive right in. The first thing that men fall deeply in love with is your sense of adventure. I remember when I was dating my wife Antia, one of the things that really made me start to develop deep feelings for her was she was always up for an adventure. So I had this idea one time for my birthday that we were going to go around the island of Oahu on my moped that I had at the time. And so she said, okay, let's do it. And so we started the day, in the afternoon. We went up to the beach and had a great time at the beach. And afterwards I suggested karaoke. She said, okay, let's go do some karaoke. So that was fun. And she was, enjoying that and going on that adventure with me. And then we decided to go all the way around the island, and it was pretty dark. And it turns out that we thought it was going to be a lot quicker to get around the island than it actually was. But I appreciated that she was willing to go on that adventure with me, even though it got tough, even though it got scary at times. And she stuck it out. That really appealed to me and made me start to develop some deeper feelings. The second thing that men fall deeply in love with is your charisma. One way to develop charisma is to actually practice speaking, performing, and doing things where you are out of your comfort zone, facing your fears, and being able to express yourself. So one thing I recommend is actually taking an acting class or a dancing class. These really helped me to develop my speaking skills and my ability to feel comfortable putting myself out there, that I did pretty early on in my career. But I've seen also the attractiveness of women and of people who are able to dance, perform, express themselves in a charismatic way, putting themselves out there, facing their fears, because it's one of those things that shows confidence and an ability to believe in yourself and your ability to value what you have to offer to the world as well. The third thing that men fall deeply in love with is your weirdness. Now you might have parts of yourself that you say, oh, that's too weird. I don't want to show a man that when we're on a first date, or I don't want to reveal too much of my crazy side, my personality, and my quirkiness. But you don't realize that those things that make you unique are actually going to be the things that stick in his mind, that he's going to remember and he's going to think about after you're away from each other. So don't hide those unique parts of yourself. Be uniquely you. As Oscar Wilde said, no one can be you better than you. So you have to embrace that and use that. One of the things that really made me start to develop feelings for my wife early on was she had this really unique laugh that people... it's kind of already ascribed her as this kind of unique Antia laugh. And so that was one of the things that was appealing. She let herself, she just kind of was her and laughed the way she laughed. She didn't try to change it or hide it or anything. The other thing was she had this happy hippo dance that she would do when she was really happy, when she was excited. She would kind of jump up and down and side to side. It was really unique. It was kind of funny. It was kind of goofy, but it really made me kind of remember her, and it was very endearing. So those kind of things you want to let yourself express. The fourth thing that men fall deeply in love with is your feminine, nurturing warmth. Now, one of the things you can do when you're with a man, when he's having some strong emotions coming up, whether that's anger, sadness, fear, frustration, or you are as well, is to actually go into it with him and say something like, what else? Tell me more. How else do you feel? What else frustrates you? What else is making you angry? Especially even if he's angry at you, it's like, what else? What else are you angry about? Because what you're doing in that moment, even though it's hard to do, is you're showing, for one, I care about you. I want to hear what you have to say. I'm able to hold what you have to say. So you're not running away. You're not getting defensive and attacking him right back, but you're actually just trying to understand him more and trying to help him get it out. Like, say, what else? Tell me more. How else are you feeling? So it's actually a feminine nurturing trait, because what you're doing in that moment is you're saying, I got you and I want to see all of you, and you're safe to share all of yourself with me. So tell me more. What else? Show me more. And then, of course, you can deal with it after that, and you don't have to, you're not a doormat. You don't just accept him, yelling at you or whatever, but you have to at least let yourself hear what he has to say, help him to get it out, and then you could, of course, share what you have to say and hopefully find a win-win with him. The fifth thing that men fall deeply in love with is your sense of self-value. So holding a higher standard for what you deserve, what you want in a relationship, even just on a date or in a casual connection with a guy, you have to have certain standards of what you're willing to accept. And if a man isn't meeting those standards, you just pretty much ignore him, ignore the communication until he meets those standards, or you communicate what your standards are and tell him what he needs to do basically to meet that you're not going to accept anything less. And if he can't meet those standards, you're gone essentially. So one of the things that my wife did early on when we were dating is I would send out these texts to her that would say like, hey, I'm going to the museum on Saturday. I'm going to this party on Thursday. And I would just kind of throw it out there. And it was kind of my casual way of inviting her to things. And she often would not even respond to those things. And then later I would ask her like, why didn't you come to my, when I invited you to this thing? She's like, you didn't invite me. I'm like, yeah, I did. She's like, no, you just told me what you were doing. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess I could have been a little more clear. So she was holding a standard that she would only respond to clear communication, basically, or direct communication, not some of this wishy-washy like, oh, hey, I'm doing this, come on, it's too casual, that kind of approach. So that was one of the things that endeared me to her, actually, because it showed that she was valuing herself and she wasn't just going to accept kind of like my scraps or breadcrumbs, but she wanted a real communication, real initiation from me. The sixth thing that men fall deeply in love with is being his cheerleader. Now, one of the things you can do with your man is make him look good in front of others, like lift him up in front of others, praise him. It's not just for the others to think better of him, but actually he will be able to see that you're on his team. Not only are you on his team, but you're actually actively promoting him, that you believe in him, that you're his cheerleader. So it could be something very simple, like when you're around friends, or just saying like, oh yeah, he's so great at solving problems, or he's the tech genius. If you need anything, just talk to him. Or yeah, he's amazing at XYZ, whatever his hobby might be, or his skill sets that he has, things that you actually admire about him, things that he actually does well. Try to find those things and praise him whenever those topics come up to others. He doesn't even have to be there. He may find out about it indirectly, but especially when he's there, if you're like lifting him up, it's going to make him feel really good. It's going to make him feel like a better man, that you see his value, and he's going to appreciate that. And that was one of the things my wife did very well, even to this day still does, that I really like, is when we're talking to others, I'll often hear her saying things about, how great I am at this certain skill, or what thing I did that she really admired. So it's a very powerful thing that can make him develop a deep emotional bond. The seventh thing that men fall deeply in love with is raising your standards. So in your dating, in your relationships in general, to avoid accepting wishy-washy men. I've kind of mentioned this before, but it's so important for you to actually raise the bar of what you want in a relationship. So I want you to write out, what are your bare minimum standards for a relationship? You don't want to be super unreasonable and say, I want a man who, does everything for me, and he pays for everything, and he's giving me a massage every night, and he's texting me every other 5 minutes, so try to be reasonable about what your desires are, but make a clear list, at least in your mind, of what your bare minimum is, and avoid accepting less than that. If a man does not meet that behavior, that you're letting him know, or you're ignoring the behavior. Ignore that which you do not want and reward that which you do want. So it's very important to set that bar and to maintain that bar through your clear communication and boundaries. The eighth thing that men fall deeply in love with is avoiding personal attacks. So when you're having conflict and when you're having an argument with him, avoid calling him names and avoid saying like you are, the phrase you are, or why are you so. These kind of phrases are typically personal attacks that are also generalizations. So saying something like, why are you always so stupid? It could be something like that. Why are you always screwing this up? Or why are you always attacking me? Or why are you such a, why are you so passive? It could be anything. So you're attacking him on who he is, and it's a personal attack. You want to avoid that because it's going to really cause sometimes permanent damage in your relationship, and it can cause a rift between you. What you want to actually talk about is the behavior and the specific thing that he did and how it made you feel. When you did this, it made me feel sad. When you ignored my text for 3 days. It made me feel like you don't really care. Things like that. So it's showing him how his actions are actually impacting you without saying like, you are an asshole, you are this, you are that. Those personal attacks will cause damage. And this is one of the things that my wife did really well, because she had communication training when we were first dating and in our relationship now, is she avoids those personal attacks, and we talk about conflict more as a team, facing the issue together so we can find a win-win solution. The ninth thing that men fall deeply in love with is taking care of yourself. So this means taking time out of your calendar for you, time with girlfriends, times where you're filling up your own cup, whether that's walks in nature, exercise, going to church, whatever that might be for you that you feel like you're getting lifted up, especially time with girlfriends, positive girlfriends that are lifting you up, ideally girlfriends that have what you want, because that extra estrogen is also going to help make you more attractive, more desirable in general. It's good to fill that cup up of girlfriend time. But make sure you're cutting aside that time out of your career, out of family obligations, whatever else there might be, for you to invest into yourself, to fill yourself up, because men will then be receiving the message that you are a woman who's worth investing into. You invest in yourself, he should probably invest into you also, because you must be worth it. So it's a very powerful message to send to yourself and to communicate to others in the world and men in general. The 10th thing that men fall deeply in love with is your full presence. Now, this means that when you're together, ideally, you're also just talking about things that you're both interested in, talking about each other, your relationship. Avoid talking about other people and gossiping, because that's taking the focus away from the two of you and putting it onto other people. And especially if it's negative gossip, of course you can talk about things occasionally, but in general, you want to try to keep the conversation focused on the two of you, and avoid looking at your phone, getting distracted by other things, letting other issues with your kids, family, just always pull you away from your connection with him, especially when you're together. You can let people know, hey, I'm on a date. Hey, I'm out. Hey, I'm with Fred, or whatever his name is. Let them know so that you're not going to be constantly bothered. And maybe they have a code word they can send you if it's a real emergency, but try to create boundaries and space so that when you're with your guy, it can just be the two of you, and you're not getting constantly pulled away and your attention diverted. That's a very powerful thing that can build the connection really strong. So as you can see in the game of love, there are many things you can do that are totally in your control that can cause a man to develop deep emotional connections to you, and avoid him losing interest, pulling away, or feeling like there's just not that spark there. There's just not that emotional bond that'll keep him committed and keep him deepening his commitment and his connection to you. So you want to remember these. You want to come back to this, practice these principles. Leave your comments or questions below. We can get you some feedback on things that you're noticing with your guy in particular, and that'll really help you. Next, if you haven't yet, make sure to take our free love quiz to get a loving, long-term, and committed relationship fast without loneliness, frustration, or emotionally unavailable men by going to getlovequiz.com, or click on the link in the description or comments below. And I look forward to talking to you there more, helping you on your love journey, and seeing you in our next powerful training as well. Much love. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.